we are talking about breaking the cycle of negative relationships. I sent an email to my listserv this morning about how, there's a lot of things that we are hearing about in the world. There's a whole lot of things going on, and we need to have an opportunity to talk about the things that can actually bring us a lot of life and joy. And the way that I can do that is to talk about that with our personal relationships. Who is it that we allow into our life, into our circle, to make sure that they are adding to our life and not taking away, to make sure that we are getting relationships that are bespoke to what it is that we want, to who we want to connect with who we want to be. And that starts by looking at intentionally doing that. So I have been doing this work both personally and professionally for a long time now, over 20 years. I started my own personal journey with healing from love addiction and love avoidance, and pushing things away. And I've been professionally helping people with this work since 2009. So however long that is. But looking at that, a lot of times we can kind of hope that just life circumstances, if I take long breaks from relationships, if I just focus on myself, if I just worry about and try to have a good and happy life, then everything is going to fall into place. But that is not the case. Like a lot of things in our life, we need to be intentional about it. We didn't happen upon a college degree. We didn't happen upon financial success or stability. For those of us where was a personal goal, and it was something that we had to work towards, depending on your family background and your economic status and all that stuff, right? We didn't happen upon talents that we possess that we also got to graduate into earlier things. Like maybe you were someone who was naturally athletic, who was naturally good at math or other skill sets. Maybe you're naturally a good musician, you have an ear to it, but you put in work to get better at it. You put in work to master it, to make it something that you could actively love and enjoy. And that's what we need to do when it comes to relationships. Also, in my email, I said that we needed to have more hope core, because there's a lot of people out there who are talking about relationships, that are talking about connections, but there's a lot of bitterness, just to be honest with y'all. There's a lot of bitterness. There's a lot of people who've been hurt. There's a lot of people who've had real trauma. And I want to put emphasis on real trauma. They have seen things from the people in their life. They observe the people around them. They have seen the ways that systems and circumstances and patriarchy and sexism and infantile adults and men who should be taking care of people have hurt them and hurt other people. And they have conceptualized this into messages to help put people on game, to help other people not get hurt, to not get harmed by what could potentially happen. And a lot of those things are based in pain, but there's rings of truth to it, right? So they have helped people avoid patterns. They have helped people avoid getting caught up in relationships and situations that would end up harming them, which is wonderful. But like I said, there's this energy of bitterness that comes with it too. There is this energy of, well, this is the best that you can get, so let's be cynical. Let's expect the worst. And so we're going to milk situations for as much as we can have. When you get into relationships, all relationships are going to drain you. All relationships are going to siphon energy from you. All relationships are going to be an unequal exchange. And so that leaves those of us who want to have intimacy, that want to have connection, that want to have beautiful partnerships, to just start to believe that it doesn't exist, right? Because if I'm taking some advice here, if I'm taking some wisdom from some people, and it's showing up, it's proving true, then that must mean that everything is true. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. That it is very possible and is very doable for us to build life and relationships that add to us, that are fun, that bring us joy, that are romantic, that are loving, that are mutually beneficial, that we end up being able to grow together instead of having it be a competition about who takes what. In regards to the types of relationships types of cycles that I help women break here, and I would actually love to know if you can relate to any of these cycle breaking things that I'm talking about. But a lot of the cycles that I have helped women break, and that I hope that to be able to help y'all break as well, is being in relationships with people who are unavailable and you're constantly trying to get them to attach. Going these long periods of time, like I said, of being in relationship droughts, whether or not it's by circumstance. So you want to be in partnerships and relationships, but it's just not happening, or you're finding people who don't actually meet the qualifications that you want, or you are self-selecting out of the game, out of the cycle because of the pain and the hurt that you've gone through, only to return and the same thing happens, and you're like, see, this is why I don't want to do this in the first place. So to break that cycle so that your experiences are better after that, to stop being the person that's always constantly giving to people and not being the one that's receiving. And then also one of when, so like I said, I haven't gone live in a while. So some of the things I'm going to be sharing, if you've been with me for a while, you've heard me say a lot of these things a lot. But for a lot of people, you may be new if you're watching me live or catching this replay. But the reason why I focus on this, and I'm gonna give my introduction in a second, just so you know, I'm not just this random person on the internet talking. I focus on relationships because there's multiple mirrors, there's multiple windows and doors into self-help and healing and betterment. For some people, they have very deep and intense depression, and that's what drives them to finding therapy, finding some type of healing, somatic therapy, finding medication, finding spiritual healing. But depression is their window into their healing journey. For some people, that journey looks like maybe grief. For me, that was my entryway into self help and development work. Even though I'm a therapist by trade, I was a therapist by trade when I started this. My entryway was losing my mother unexpectedly and quickly, and that just bringing me into this cycle of grief and just unveiling all these cycles of codependency and things that I didn't know were existing. But behind that grief, like I just said, I learned about codependency. I started to learn, wait, maybe I don't really have as much high self-esteem that I thought I did, because I presented very well on paper, and in friendships and in the world, I could do life very well. And so I never thought that there were things that were actually deeper going on. I just thought I would just figure it out over time. But I focus on relationships because relationships are a great mirror. They reflect back what is going on underneath. They reflect back what is going on by way of what you think is possible, by what you accept, by the cycles you're stuck in, by the boundaries you have or that you don't have, by what your defense mechanisms look like. All of that gets reflected to you. And on the good side as well, what do you feel like you're worthy to receive? Is this love too easy? Is this connection too good? Did I really expect someone to actually love and cherish me and value me this deeply and not expect it to crash on the other side of it, right? Let me know if y'all can relate to any of those cycles that happen so commonly. And they happen across, across education levels, they happen across age limits, they happen across ethnic backgrounds and everything, because to be human is to want to be in connection and to be loved. And for some people, that connection and love does not look like romantic relationships. There are some people who would prefer just to focus on community and focus on friendship and family. But connection is a big part of it. And so, what happens when that desire to be connected, that desire to belong, that desire to have safety and to be able to feel settled is always interrupted? That you can never find a safe group, a safe family, a safe person before something happening. That starts to weigh on your psyche, it starts to weigh on your soul. And so, all that to say, today we're going to talk about breaking the cycle of negative relationships. Like I said, this is my first time going live, and I said over a year, it might even be close to 2 years, y'all. I haven't gone live in a while, but I'm going to start going live this week because I really want to talk through this, and I really want to be here to connect, to answer any questions, to support. So if you have not joined me live before, here's what happens. I talk, and I love comments and questions. I will go off on tangents, and I love that. So anything that I say that relates to you, any questions that you have, please feel free to drop in the comments. I'm not someone who like skips over comments and I'm like, oh, let me just act like I'm scrolling and I'm looking for something that I want to say. So let me know. Like, for example, hey, Beanie. So let me know that you're here. If you're watching the replay later, let me know that you watched the replay. And keep in mind one thing that stood out to you because I want to know what helped. So I did promise an introduction. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sheena Lachey. I'm the founder of Black Girls Heal. I'm a therapist by trade. I've been a therapist since 2009, a licensed therapist with a master's in marriage and family therapy. So my specialization from the beginning has been families, relationships, connections, and cycles. Throughout my tenure in my professional career, I have become a trauma specialist. I've gotten training and certifications in dialectical behavior therapy, which is the main therapy model for those of us who have emotional regulation issues, needing to tolerate distress, working through mindfulness. I'm training EMDR, which is my favorite trauma therapy model to help with those of us who have deeply ingrained trauma, complex PTSD, and also some training in somatic experiencing, which is body work and healing. But my main story that I share when I'm talking about this is how I'm not just a professional who understands through book knowledge, and I've helped hundreds and thousands of women, both in the therapy chair and as a coach, but I've also gone through this cycle. I've also gone through this process of breaking out of cycles of love addiction and love avoidance, of constantly being attracted to the one person in the room that cannot give me what I want, and also becoming that avoidant myself in relationships and self-medicating through work, through self-distractions, through all the other things, to now have a life where that is not my story, that I understand it because I've been there and because I help women with this every day. But my life and my relationships are a complete 180. My joy, my receptacle for love, my relationships add to me so much. And you'll hear more about that as I talk about my story and go live over the next couple of days. But I know that this is possible, and I help y'all know that this is possible as well. Okay, so I talk, and I always prompt y'all to let me know that you're ready. So if you're ready for the first point, to know how to, what I'm going to do today actually is I'm going to talk about things to keep in mind when it comes to breaking cycles of negative relationships. So if you're ready for the first point, drop a heart or a one in the comments so I know you're with me. A heart or a one in the comments. I know that you're with me. And then I will talk about things to keep in mind. If you missed the intro while I'm waiting for that, I talked about how in this world where there's a whole lot of negativity and sadness and bitterness around relationships, and like, men ain't, and relationships are only going to take from you, and let's just decenter love and relationships and connection. I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because it leaves so many of us who have a deep heart and yearning for connection and for love to just opt out. And I feel like, just like you can be in a situationship that will eat up all your energy and time and waste your years, waste your month, waste your energy, I think having these negative mindsets also takes from us. It may be what we need, and I see your hearts. Thank you so much for them. I'm going to start with the first point. It may help us in the moment, depending on the type of heartbreak and grief that we've gone through, to have that to hold on to just have some power when we've had people or situations take power away from us, right? But ultimately, it just eats at us. So, the first reason, or this first reason, the first thing for us to keep in mind when it comes to breaking negative relationships and why this needs to be something we prioritize is because it is the number one way to reclaim power over previous systems that you did not have the power over, and also to make sure that you don't follow it again. I'll say that again. It is the number one way for us to reclaim power over previous systems that we did not have power over, and to also make sure that we do not follow suit and those after us do not follow suit. So, what I'm talking about here is I'm talking directly about family relationships, our family trauma, our family backgrounds, the things that we saw our mothers experience, the things that we saw our aunties experience, the things that we saw the other women in our life or other people before us experience, maybe other people in our culture. I don't know about you, but growing up, There may be have been a lot of things. I'll actually speak in first person right now. Growing up, there were so many things that I would see happen, and I was like, "That's not going to be me. That will never be me." I cannot wait till I'm grown and I'm out this house, so I could do what I want to do, talk how I want to talk, show up the way that I would want to show up. Because I would never settle for that. I would never do that. I would never treat somebody like that, only to find that those were patterns that subconsciously came out, that these were things that without me knowing crept out and became my reality. And I think when you have that type of experience one time, it's like a fluke. Two times, it's a coincidence. Three or four times, you start to wait. Okay, wait, maybe am I the problem? Or is this how relationships are? Is this how people are? Is this the best that I can expect? Other people seem like they can have it differently than me, but maybe they're the anomaly. Maybe they are the ones that got lucky. Maybe they're the ones where, um, how they say we only see the highlight reel of what happens, and people only post the good things on social media. Media. Maybe they're secretly upset and fighting in the background, and everybody's miserable. And maybe that's just how it is, right? And you start to kind of question your sense of reality, because up until a certain point, all evidence points to certain relationships and certain connections mean overgiving. It means codependency. It may mean infidelity for some of you. Or infidelity is what you saw and maybe what you've experienced. It may mean being with people who neg you and make you start to doubt your self esteem. It may be in relationships where you're unequally yoked and you're needing to help pull them up. It may be with people who are super successful, but they're all narcissists, right? And so you're constantly in relationships with people who drain you, and where there's like a catch 22 to relationships when you start to think that that is normal. And so these are all things that are stories that may have happened to you, but they do not need to be your truth. And that, on one hand, before we even get to the empowerment, that can feel very disempowering, because when bad relationships and bad situations happen to you, you're not necessarily taking it lying down, right? Like you're working to fight it. You are trying to defend yourself. You're trying to tell people what your boundaries are, what your standards are. You are standing up for yourself. You may have even tried to break up with people or stop talking to people or shift things around, and it didn't work. And so to have a message that says, this is how you reclaim power by changing it. Um, I, Again, I'll speak for myself. It's like when I would have people, I would tell them what was going on, or if they saw what was going on, or I just saw myself, because again, I'm a relationship expert by trade. I'm a therapist by trade. So there was, once my eyes were open to certain patterns, I was like, you can't feign ignorance anymore. Like you see what you see it, and that's what it is, right? So when people would say something to the effect of you should just stop, or you should love yourself, or you deserve better, or whatever else, and I would still be pining over certain people or go back to certain relationships, I felt a lot of self-blame. I felt a lot of shame. And again, it reinforced this belief that maybe there was something wrong with me. If it's not something wrong with me, there's something wrong with the relationships, right? And if I'm still trying to be in partnerships, maybe I can look at me and look at my part. And I just want to be clear that that's not what I mean when I'm talking about this right here. I'm not talking about that concept specifically, that the messaging that's like you're the common denominator. That's not what I'm getting at today. What I'm getting at is that there have been unseen factors that, with everything that you've known, you have used everything that you have known how to do, with all the information that you've had, with all the books that you've had, with all the therapy that you've had, with all of the YouTube videos that you can get a part of, to try to get ahead of this. And it has not worked. And I'm here to say that it might not have worked, not because it is unworkable, that is unfixable, but maybe there's more information. Maybe there are unknown cycles and patterns that were not on the awareness, wheel for you or for the other people that have been helping you. That once you get access to that information, once you have that, again, like I said, once things are unearthed to you and you see things, you can't go back. So once you know those things, once you see them, Maybe that's the missing piece. Not that this is how things are supposed to be forever and ever and ever. Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense. Karoni says, especially if you're passionate about what you stand for. Are you talking about some of the things I was talking about with my background, or what part are you meaning? Let me know what you mean when you share that. But yeah, let me know if that makes sense. That you can reclaim your power over previous systems, to make the life that you want, to break this cycle, um, to by getting information to know, okay, maybe it's not just because one of the things that is like kind of in the zeitgeist that I hear all the time is daddy issues. We talk a lot about daddy issues, sometimes mommy issues, but a lot of times it's father wounds. And yes, people may have father wounds, but the way that the father wounds land for one person, depending on who that father was and how they showed up and what they did, is going to make him, her, or them look for reconciliation and look for resolution in relationships in a different way than the next girl that may have father wounds. Um, is not one size fits all. And what I found more often than not in my practice is, yes, there may be father wounds, but those mother wounds are across the board. They are more common than the father wounds are. Or if they're not more common, the wound that you have with unhealed mother wounds or active mother wounds hits deeper because that's your first relationship. So if the first person that I ever met and the one that also brought me into this world, I feel like she doesn't like me, or if we can't talk, or I feel disdain from her, I feel judged by her, I feel harmed by her, how is that going to set us up for our own ability to believe in ourselves, for our ability to want to connect to other people, to trust that love is safe? You know what I mean? To even know how to connect if our first relationship that's supposed to teach us connection is flawed. And that's foundational. You know, when looking at trauma, there's different types of trauma, like different categories, but also depending on the age and the time that the trauma has happened, it it all impacts your nervous system, but your access to it is different. So if you have trauma that happens when you're pre-verbal, so pre-verbal means from infancy and below. So you're not able to communicate when is hurting you, when you're not able to communicate that you need something, that you need to be comforted, that you need to feel safe. Um, that's all teaching things to your brain and to your body about the world and if it's safe and if people respond to you and all of that. And so if you're 1 years old and you just need your mama to hug you, and your mom is either actively pushing you away, like physically pushing you away, that was a story for some of us. Some of us have had parents or caregivers who are like, "Don't touch me, I don't want to be touched, and if you try to touch me, you'll be punished for physical affection." That's some of our stories. We may have had parents that wanted to be there, but they were always distracted, whether with other siblings, with work, with taking care of the house, with managing an abusive co parent, with her own depression, her own anxiety, her own addiction. So being physically in the presence of someone, but them not being able to pay attention to you, and see you as as valuable, see you as someone that's worthy of being seen. You're thinking, do you think that if that was your experience every day of your life and you're helpless, like you don't know how to go and call a girlfriend for help and support, you don't have access to that. You don't have access to go and turn on a TV to self medicate and distract yourself because you're one. So you don't think that that being your background every day does not set into your spirit, set into your psyche what your expectations are for love and for connection? And so you grow up as an adult and that all stacks on top of each other. You get what I'm saying? So going back to my main point, we're talking about breaking the cycle of negative relationships, and I'm talking about things for us to keep in mind while we need to keep this on the forefront. To not pay attention to all the naysayers and all the information and all the people are trying to get us to just forget relationships, forget connection, just focus on yourself. Like you don't need it. We do need it. because to be connected, to belong, to be integrated with another person is foundational to being human. It is something that we're all seeking. Does that make sense? Beyond all the other extra things that we get in life, I can't tell you how many women I have supported that have marked all the things off of their list. And the most heartbreaking thing that they say is the most simple thing, that they just wish that they had someone to connect to and share this with. And again, I'm not saying that romantic relationships are superior, because a lot of these women are talking even just about friendships, that they wish that they had a deep sisterhood, friendship, um, partner, whatever that looks like, to share and build her life with. Whether or not that looks like sisterhood tribe, or whether or not that looks like, um, romantic partnership. And with the sisterhood, talk about connection to mother wounds. If you can't connect to your mother because of what may happen, or what she may say, or what she may do, or what she's taught you about how safe female relationships are, how much harder is that going to be for you to connect to women in your adult life? When maybe the main woman, or maybe the main women in your life, all have a certain attitude, or all have this distance, all have this anger, all have this competitiveness, all have this aloofness. Who knows? There are so many variations of what mother wounds could look like, that may subconsciously, or for some of us consciously, impact our ability to connect with other women and build relationships. So for us to break this cycle, we have to say, okay, these things that have happened to me, these things that have created these insecurities in me, and they are legitimate things that have happened. I no longer want these to be my truth. If there's an alternative, I want the alternative, and I'm going to suspend my disbelief. If I'm someone who's been burned from trying to work on these things before, I'm going to suspend my disbelief and say that maybe it's not that things are not possible, but maybe there's another avenue to look at this, so that I can get what is natural and what is true for me and what I deserve to have. I believe that every person, I'm never going to stop talking about this, because I believe every person in this world deserves love. I think that that is an inherent human right for every person to deserves love, and the form of that love may differ. But if we have any barriers in between that stops us from being able to receive that love and finding people and find relationships that are safe for that, then that's what this platform is for. Okay. So I saw that there were some comments. Let me go to them. I was on a roll. Yes, the background. Yes, I'm very passionate about relationships and about healing and about trauma. And I will always continue to invest my time and my energy and my money into learning about that and training myself about that to help other people. Heartbeat Vibe says, "Oh, you getting into it?" Yeah, I was talking about mother wounds when she wrote that. Oh, damn, I was definitely trying to put it on the back burner, but I'm not that high achiever avatar. I am the struggle bus storyline. Got to get housing stable first. Yeah. So, but know that I'm on my way to getting housing stable. That is awesome. That is so awesome that you are aware of that. So, usually when I talk about love addiction and love addictive patterns, I talk more about the relationship portion. But yeah, there are different ways that this will manifest. So for those of us, I'll just talk about, since you mentioned the avatars, and then I'll get to point number two. Um, Different types of women, different types of people who may have a consistent pattern of relationships that are not showing up in the way that they want, because either that person is unavailable or they are unavailable to that person, and it is all of them. So yes, there may be people who are high achievers who may be very purpose driven, and that is where they put a lot of their energy and time and relationships into. For those people, usually they get into either relationships with people that are unavailable because they are fixer uppers. They become Barbara the Builder, to help support and be the background and be the believer and the cheerleader for the partner that they're with. There's someone who is not on their level, maybe emotionally, maybe mentally, maybe financially, maybe spiritually. And so they come in as the Messiah, as the helper, as the guru to help make this diamond in the rough someone who could be on her level. And it doesn't work out that way because it's not a mutual relationship. But she can't see it at the time because she's so used to being above everyone and also giving to other people that this relationship just repeats what she's had before. She could also be with folks who are narcissists. So people who may look like on paper that they have everything that they want, that they need, but this is a person that is emotionally unavailable. So again, because this is a person who isn't used to people pouring into her, at first she doesn't clock the narcissistic behavior of this person because there's a lot of shiny stuff going on at the same time. There may be a whole lot of love bombing going on at the same time. But the ways that this person is slowly siphoning and draining her and asking things of her that are not actually healthy relationship compromises are not even on her awareness. So that is on one extreme, because like I said, this can show up in everybody. It doesn't matter what your relationship, what your economic background is, what your ethnicity background is. I've worked with women and men of all races and backgrounds for these exact issues. It is more how the trauma has manifested in you, how the trauma has manifested, the type of trauma that's happened, how it's manifested, and how it has shown up in your adult relationships. So this is not this does not discriminate against people. So, but that's on one extreme. On the other extreme, you used the word struggle bus. You said this year on the struggle bus storyline. So for those of us who, there are so many different life circumstances that can land us on the struggle bus, whether or not we have historically been with families or with partners that have not set us up with access to, resources that we needed, whether or not those resources are things like education and money, or sometimes it's just self-belief. Maybe we may have had everything that we needed in front of us, but these were people that were emotionally abusive, that they were neglectful, that they were absent. And so we had to spend so much of our energy and focus just surviving, right? And focusing on putting out fires that we couldn't actually build what it is that we needed, or saving other people from their own fires. I think for many of us, whether or not you're first generation or if you have grown up in this in the multiple generations, like you're African American, but you are helping your. What am I trying to say? Many people can relate to giving back to family, giving back to others. So instead of you building what you needed to build, you're giving money, time, access back to other people, and you're not able to actually build on your own because you're taking care of others. Um, or it could just be a whole lot of trauma. So whether or not it's sexual abuse, whether or not it's physical abuse, whether or not it's spiritual abuse, but there are so many wounds that you have that are like kind of melded on top of each other, that as much as you want love and connection and relationships, there's so much pain, there's so much hurt, there's so much confusion about what that looks like, that untangling all of that is hard, not knowing where to start. And then even when you start, we meet people along the way, and we meet people at our best self. And sometimes our best self doesn't have the awareness and awareness of what red flags are. So when we meet other people that are at their best self, but they have those red flags, it may seem like a match, but all it is kind of brokenness meeting brokenness. And so that becomes my cycle until I'm able to heal myself and work through these things myself. And then my awareness about what's wrong, what's dysfunctional gets better. So Heartbeat says, for me, it was chaotic, neglected childhood and entering the service industry, early childhood educator, and had a child at 20, nowhere to even learn about taking care of myself. Yeah. I mean, you were a baby needing to take care of yourself. And yeah, the service industry is, it has its own stories and reputation for a reason. So I'm not going to, yeah, dysfunctional relationships abound. Yeah, dysfunctional relationships everywhere. Right. And then not even to mention how people treat you on the daily basis. So you're not even at a place in the service industry and in customer service. I think in all places, we got to learn how to, gotta is a loaded word, but we learn how to code switch. We learn how do I professionally tell somebody to stop messing with me, right? But when you're in the service industry and customer service industry, you get that type of disrespect tenfold. And you really have barriers to have people not emotionally harm you all the time. And you just have to take it to have money and to live. And so that on top of everything else is really hard. So all right, let's get back to our main topic. Thank you so much for sharing that. The lowest paying job with the expectation of a degree. Yep, yep. And they don't treat you with the respect of a degree at all. If we are ready for number 2, put a 2 in the chat. We're talking about breaking the cycle of negative relationships. And 2 things for us to keep in mind. I've already gone over number 1. The replay will be posted for those of you who are just now joining me and you missed the first point. And want to hear about that. I went like 35 minutes into talking about that first point. So this is going to be a great replay and training for those of you who want to go back to that. But yes, put a 2 or a heart in the chat. Thank you for that number 2. All right. So the second thing for us to keep in mind when it comes to breaking the cycle of negative relationships, and if you just all joining me, I saw a lot of people joining. You can put questions, comments, replies. I will respond to them. The second thing for us to keep in mind when it comes to breaking the cycle of negative relationships and the reasons why we need to prioritize this is that we are in charge of the energy that we take in and receive. We are in charge of the energy that we take in and receive. So that is a lot of words to basically just say protect your energy. So what do I mean when I say this? I've given what I'm about to say more as a tip before on previous podcasts and episodes, but I'm going to just talk about the why of the tip more as this point. So protecting our energy. When I am helping coach women to change their relationship cycles, what we do, this is what happens. We get to a place where we work through all the underlying trauma and patterns, right? All the things that are part of your cycle. I give you all the awareness, you get the awareness, now you're able to do it on your own. By way of doing that, we work on trauma, we work on self-development, we work on things that like led into that. This starts to affect everything in your life, not just your personal relationships, not just your like romantic partnerships, but like your self-esteem starts to improve, your boundaries with other people start to improve. Even people start to make changes in their career development and their patterns there. All that starts to change. But you would think that that's the solution, right? That's part of the solution. What comes next is the mindset around it. Because what happens is you get out there with this new information, your eyes are now open, so you're not falling for the okie doke anymore. Your standards are raised, your standards are different. You are enjoying this process more because of the ways that you have shifted your focus. But there's still the original negativity that I was talking about. There's still a lot of people who are preaching that love is dead, that relationships are dead, that there's no hope for it. And also, as you start to do this, you may start to test out dating people and connecting to people, and you may hit a few bad characters at first, right? You may have a couple not very nice first dates. It doesn't mean that you're going to end up in a 2-month, 3-month relationship, 1-year relationship like you used to before, right? Like these cycles are broken. You no longer end up in these patterns anymore. But that heartache about wanting to be with your person, it gets louder and it gets louder. That's really what it is. Like, okay, I've done this. I'm ready. I'm ready for me to be connected to my person. Does my person even exist? Is this even possible? And what I tell people is you have to change the messages that you're allowing yourself to see, because whatever you see and whatever you believe is going to be your truth. Whatever you see and what you believe is going to be your truth. So for a while, as I was going through my own personal, relationships, dating is crazy. I'm not really getting what I want. I fell down rabbit holes of dating mishap videos on my social media. On my TikTok, every other video would be a woman sharing her dating story. and doing a story time of how it went horribly wrong. And it'd be funny, and it'd be humorous, and it would be relatable. It would be like, yeah, I've experienced that too. Yeah, these men are crazy because I'm straight. Yeah, these men are crazy. Yeah, I can't believe that. Who do they think they are? And it would be so reassuring to me because I knew I wasn't the only one. These are other beautiful women. They're, accomplished, they're funny, they have something going for them. They effectively communicate, like this is not us, right? But even listen to what I just said. It's not us. It launched me into being into this pattern where it was an us versus them. And so, how is it that I want to actually connect with someone that I consider my enemy? How is it that I'm going to have hope to actually be loved and be loved by someone or something that ultimately I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop and it's going to break me? Why would I even want to go out on dates and be excited about dates when I'm waiting for them to say or do something weird and wacky so I can send it in the group chat or go and hope that there's another, story time to make me know that I'm not alone in this. So these things that were meant to originally comfort me were, yes, comforting me in one aspect, but also feeding this really negative belief about what was possible for me. So, yeah, my standards were raised here, but my expectations were down here. And that wasn't actually making me feel safer. Lowering my expectations was not cushioning me from heartbreak. It was making the whole process more depressing. And like, why do I even want to do this to myself? Right? So then what's the solution? What is the suggestion that I give people? The suggestion that I give people to protect our energy is you only put images and stories in front of you of what you want. Not the people that are the naysayers, not the people who had it but lost it, but the people who have what you want. So what I did is I started to do, for those of you who are familiar with social media, which you are because you're here, you're watching me on social media, is they all have options where depending on what the video is, you can click not interested. So I would start watching it, stop watching them. And if I did watch them a little bit, I would quickly do not interested. So the algorithm knew I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see nobody that's constantly having bad dates. I don't care how funny they are. I don't care what's going on. I don't want bad story times. What I want are people who are in love. And so those were the videos that I had to seek out. Those were the videos that I watched. Those were the ones that I liked, that I commented on, that I created. I think I created a folder that was like, what was that folder called? I think it was called like husband material or boyfriend stuff or something like that, but something that was saving this is what I wanted to look like. So whether or not it was story times of men who love their wives just bragging about them, whether or not it was women talking about how much their life is better by the partner that they're with. Whether or not there's people who exemplify the type of humor and softness and connection that I wanted, right? That was what I fed my mind with. I followed accounts like there's an account called Meet Cute NYC, and they stop people on the street and they ask people, "Are you a couple?" And these are people of all walks of life. It's people who are freaking, college kids to people who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s. And this guy asks them, "Are you a couple?" They say yes. And they say how they met. And again, these people of all ages, sometimes they met a year ago, sometimes they met 2 years ago, maybe they met a few months ago. And again, all ages, all backgrounds. So for those people who are like, "I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, it will never happen for me," it does. I needed to shift my vision to know that love happens every day to all people who look like me, who act like me, who have the same type of traumas as me, who have worse traumas than me, that have more baggage than I think that I have. And everyone can still find that person. And watching those people, like watching the softness in their eyes as they talked about who the other person is. They talk about in those videos what they like about the other person. They talk about, their story, and it is the most encouraging thing ever. It was those types of things that I said, this is where I'm going. This may be where other people are. This may have been where I was before, but I'm breaking the cycle. I'm not repeating this anymore. So I'm going to feed my mind, feed my spirit with what it is that I want. I'm going to feed my mind with Hope Core. And what did you know it? My energy around things changed. My access to things changed. My access to love and relationships and connections changed. And it's not even that, because I was on a trajectory at that time where I was aware enough of red flags and things to where, like I said, I didn't repeat a lot of these like really negative relationship cycles that I had before. Um, and I was also at a place where I was meeting people who treated me with the love and respect that I wanted, but there was just something like missing. There was something about like that softness and love and connection that I really wanted access to. And so I put that type of love and softness and connection in front of me to attract it into my life. And so to bring this all together with the main topic today, to break the cycle of negative relationships, to take our narratives back from all the stories and all the messages that people want to have for us, we reclaim our power by getting ahead of this, by deciding what it is that we're going to feed our spirits with. What is it that we're going to allow to have access to us and that we're going to pour into us? There's an old, if this analogy fits or if this story fits, I shared this recently somewhere else. I can't remember. Oh, I shared this in the last YouTube video. So some of you have heard me say this already. But that old story or that old belief cliche, what is it? Like life, I don't know, parable. It's a parable that every person has two wolves inside of them. Wolves, like rawr, wolves, right? And they're always at war with each other. So one wolf is full of love and positivity and optimism and abundance and prosperity and joy and happiness. And the other wolf is full of anger and envy and jealousy and rage and bitterness and betrayal. And so the parable says, which one of these wolves will win inside of you? And the answer is the one that you feed. If I constantly feed bitterness, resentful, cynicism, um, non-belief into my life, I'm going to get exactly what I feed. I'm going to get more of it. And that's the thing about it. You're like those people who have some really negative outlooks and paths and thoughts on life, they will be able to tell you 10 stories to prove that they're true. And they're absolutely right. They have 10 stories to prove that is true. But also someone who lives on this side of the world, and I would consider myself to be on this side of the world, I can give you 10 stories, 20 stories to prove the opposite. So who's right? I think both of us are right, but I think it's the path you decide that you want to follow. Okay? Let me know if that's making sense. Let me know if there are any questions in the chat. I see Instagram. I don't think I have anything. Oh my gosh, there were comments here on YouTube, but it was covered with my camera over here. So on YouTube it says, hello, Queenie. I just saw your chat. You made it to live, Taco Bella. I hope you're still here. Cooking Carter says, how late am I? I started at 1 p.m. CST. That's what time I started. But there'll be a replay here. Okay. We're going to jump in to the third point. If y'all are liking this, let me know. You can put a heart in the chat. But if you're ready for point number 3, put a number 3 or a heart in the chat. A 3 or a heart in the chat. And then we will close it out. I know I'm reaching an hour. And I want to make this so that people can watch this on their lunch hour. And come and go as they need. So if you're ready for point number 3, put a heart or a 3 in the chat. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the hearts. Let's look behind here. You're late. It's okay. It's okay. You can still catch the replay. And I'm still talking. You're here. We're happy that we're here. Please, any thoughts or questions that you'll have, let me know as we go into this. So I'm talking about breaking the cycle. Thank you for the heart to know you. I'm talking about breaking the cycle of negative relationships. I've gone over 2 very important things for us to keep in mind. And then talking about that, we've talked about mother wounds, we talked about family wounds, we talked about a lot of things along the way. So please make sure you go back and catch the beginning too, in addition to this, but I always meet everybody where they are when they're joining. So thank you for being here. Will you save this live for viewing later? Yes, I will save the live for viewing later. All right, number 3. The third thing to keep in mind when it comes to breaking the cycle of negative relationships is, or the reason why you need to do it is because many of us are a romantic at heart and we deserve to have the love that we want. So this is kind of cheating. In my riffs earlier, I kind of already talked about this. I'm going to talk about it some more, but some of y'all have already heard me say this by way of me explaining the other points. But the reason why we need to focus on breaking the cycle is because we are romantic at hearts. We are lover girls. We want to be loved, to be adored, to be seen, to be valued, to be romanced is what we want. I don't care if you're the freaking CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I don't know. I don't care if you are, a waitress at a local restaurant. I don't care if you're a nurse or a stay-at-home mom. All of us, every single one of us, wants to be seen and valued and loved and romanced. Now, that might look differently depending on who we are and our love languages. You know, the goth girl who is an artist at heart may not care anything about, a 4-carat diamond ring, but give her some art supplies. Find the right coloring markers for her. You have wooed her to no other, right? The bougie girl, the Hillary Banks in 2026, she may want that jewelry, but it may be more that you cared enough to pay attention to what is it that she wants, because many of us can do for ourselves. So it's not necessarily that you want someone who's going to take care of you. I mean, that's on the list for many of us. I'm not going to lie, that's on the list for many of us. But is this person thinking about me? Is this person thoughtful? Does this person care? Many of us have been in relationships with people, but we have rarely been in relationships with people who have cared for us, who've truly seen us and loved us. And that's where the magic is. And I believe that every person deserves that. You deserve to have access to that in this lifetime. However that looks, however long you get to have it, I believe that every person deserves to have it. So for us to break these cycle of negative relationships, again, we deserve to get connection to something that is inherently, I believe, a right for us as human beings. Is an inherent desire that we have, and you're not going to get it unless you work on this. One of the things that I talk about often, that I also know that I mentioned here in the live, is that what happens for many of us is that we get into partnerships and relationships, like, breaking these cycles is not um it's not, how do I want to say this? What happens for some people is they get to a place like I've already described, where they're like, okay, I got to break the cycle, and they do a lot of personal work, they do a lot of self-development work, they take time, they take experience, and they are able to break the cycle and get into the relationship that they want. For some people, they do happen to stumble into a partnership with someone who really loves them, but that doesn't mean that heals what's underneath. The healing work that happens then is believing that they can trust that this love is safe, believing and trusting that this love is safe and also that it's not going to leave, believing and trusting that this love is safe, is not going to leave, and that they are deserving of that love. And these are all 3 deep wounds that we've kind of hit on in me talking about some of the other underlying trauma. So safety. Did I have relationships in the past where I could be there and trust that they were going to protect me, that they were going to prioritize me, that they were going to give me access to love and resources and support that I needed all the time? Or was that flaky? Did that come and go? Was that sometimesy? Did I have to earn it? Would they take it away if they were mad at me? Right? Which leads to number 2, trust. Did I have relationships that I could actually trust people to do what they said that they were going to do? That would anticipate being an active part of my household and anticipating my needs instead of me having to have fail safes when people inevitably didn't show up for me, right? So can I trust it? Three, am I deserving of it? Have I been in relationships with people who poured into me, who affirmed me for who I was, not for how pretty I was or how fat my butt was, not for the grades that I made, not for what I added to their portfolio, not for what I added to the friend group and the resources that I brought, but did people actually see me and love me for who I was, which also taught me to love me as for who I am as well. Did I have to earn and prove that I was worthy of love, or did I actually learn that I'm deserving of love just because I exist? Because when you're in these healthy relationships with people who love you in this way and show up for you in this way and show up this consistently and say, "Let me be there for you," it is highly triggering. Your trauma work starts at that point if it hasn't already started before. Otherwise, you're going to continue to sabotage it and push the person away and push away the relationships. Okay? So let me know if there are any questions about any of that before we sign off for today. Let me know what questions you may have about all of that before we sign off for today. If you're interested, as I'm waiting to see if there are any questions, I do have a free download that you can get if you haven't gotten it already. Some of you may have already gotten it. It is my free 5-step roadmap to break the cycle of love addiction and love avoidance and love deprivation. So there are 3 intimacy disorders that I teach around mostly, and you can get it by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. And I want to say, how long is that roadmap? I don't think it's 20 pages. I think it's 12 pages. But I go over what the 5 steps are for each of the intimacy disorders. I talk about the roadblocks that you can experience, so that you can have it on your radar if it comes up. And then there's also an invitation if you want to work with me in my program called the BGH Method. Actually, I think I need to update the roadmap. The roadmap still talks about the recovery school. The recovery school is the way that I used to help people, my coaching students. It was a 3 to 6 month program, and I accelerated the curriculum. I made it shorter. I made it 90 days, so that you can do it on your own. I know a lot of people are busy these days. We're conserving our energy, we're conserving our focus, but we still want to work on the things that are important to us. So the BJ's method is how you do that. And I'll put the link in the caption for that below. But you can join me in my 90-day program called the BJ's Method to help you break these cycles of negative relationships and beliefs, to make sure that what I was talking about you're no longer like the idea of ever getting in a situationship again, not only because I'm in a committed partnership, but like even if I wasn't before I met him, the idea of ever getting in a situationship again and being in these type of cycles would never happen. And that wasn't because I was avoiding relationships. I was still dating. I was still connecting to people. I was still out there building friendships, building everything. That there was nothing that I was withholding from myself. Um, my experience was just markedly different, by way of working on this and having this awareness. And so I teach all of that to y'all. I help you with your trauma recovery, your trauma work, in that program as well. And you get to do it in the comfort of your own home. So the link for that is blackgirlsheal.org/method. But if you're on social media, it should also be the links for both are in my bio. So on YouTube, yes, these questions, the spinny thought cycle, love addict here. Yeah. So constantly, what's the right word? When I teach a long time, my words start to disappear. So that's how you know it's time for me to sign off and come back the next day. I'm gonna try to come back live tomorrow. Um, but ruminating, constantly ruminating over different people, over different thoughts, obsessing. I've definitely been there. The texting multiple times. There's somebody has a recording of me somewhere. Thank God, at the height of all this, social media was not what it was now, because somebody, depending on how petty they would be and how long they've held on to things, could really embarrass me. But that's okay. I love you, woman. Your work is so, so, so important. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for joining me and showing up. Awesome session. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ooh, I'm going to have to get different stands for these iPads. I have iPads here. But all right, y'all. I'm going to be here. I'm gonna try to go live tomorrow. I wasn't gonna go live tomorrow, but this was fun. I've missed doing this with y'all. I've missed going live. So would love to see you again. If you're catching the replay, let me know what stood out to you. Let me know if you have any questions. This is how I know that y'all want this, by your interaction and your commenting and your showing up and your hearts and everything. So let me know that so I can keep on coming. So that's it, y'all. I look forward to helping those of y'all who need support in our BGH Method program. But for everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye. Bye. Bye, YouTube.